I do mobile aircraft mechanic for GA airplanes, 1,000 horsepower radial engine, beast of an airplane. You watch it fly through the sky, it looks like a freight train.
Hey guys, what's up? In this video, we're going to have a chat with an A&P mechanic up in Alaska, and we're going to talk about basically the lifestyle living in Alaska as an aircraft mechanic. Hey Rob, welcome. Thanks for taking a few minutes here.
Hey, thanks Josh, appreciate it. My name is Rob Olson-Dry. I'm the owner of Pops Air Service based in Homer, Alaska. I do mobile aircraft mechanic for GA airplanes. Also love going out into the bush and working on airplanes. So I take a summer job, if you will, working with Katmai Air, working on 206s and Beavers at a remote fly fishing lodge on the Alaska Peninsula.
Sounds awesome. I haven't made it to Alaska yet, but you're aware it's definitely on my list. Okay, so the first question I have for you, diving right into it, someone that is a current aircraft mechanic or maybe even just considering going into the field working and on aircraft in general, what would you tell someone that has not been to Alaska and, all they know is they see the awesome, scenery and they think it's a good fit for them, but they've never been there?
Yeah, man, first and foremost, you just got to come up and experience. There's no YouTube video, there's no book, there's no picture or anything that'll explain and describe what this place is like on its own. You got to come up and check it out for yourself. But it's not for everyone. The environments can be pretty harsh, but it can also be beautiful. It can be perfect t-shirt weather, or it can be negative 40 degrees. Just depends on where you're at in the time, and you better be prepared for where you're going. Okay. Quite a bit of resources out there, but obviously the biggest and the best is to talk to the people that live in the area that you're looking at trying to be, or reach out to somebody like me that's been to a lot of the places, and I can at least put you in contact with the right people.
So the second question I have is, what do most mechanics do that move up there, live up there, work up there? What do they do in the off season? Because I know there's a busy season, there's an off season. Do they stay? Do they leave? What options might be available?
There's really two different kinds of aviation companies or airline operations up here, assuming we're talking on the general aviation side of things. With the GA scene, most of the businesses in the summer, there is quite a bit of small time charter operations that do fall moose hunts, caribou hunts, taking supplies and materials out to cabins in the remote area, taking people to and from little villages in the wintertime. So there's some wintertime stuff too. But assuming that it's the typical summertime operation, taking people to view bears like they do here in Homer, or take people to remote fishing spots and lodges and such, that's generally a May to October type thing. And on the mechanic side, kind of two ways to go. Either they want you for the summer and you're going to be wrenching for them, and then when September, October comes, you leave and you go to Tahiti or Mexico or Wisconsin, if that fits the bill. But you get a lot of snowbirds, if you will, that come up and enjoy the weather when it's really good up here and enjoy the blue skies and the great perfect flying weather, and then go somewhere else and visit family and live inexpensively somewhere else that's typically warmer.
The third question I have, staying on track here, is it basically cold everywhere, or what is the climate like, and what options would you have, I guess, across the state? And
yeah, there's actually quite a bit of varied temperatures here. Southeast is known for its rain. The Juneau area and Sitka and whatnot is known for its rain in the summertime, and it gets cold in the winter, of course. But I haven't spent any time there, but I expect it's similar to living in Pacific Northwest, Washington, Oregon area. If you live up by Fairbanks and in the interior and way up north, Kotzebue, Fairbanks, and any place up there, the interior can get a lot colder. That's where you get those negative 50 degree temperatures in the wintertime, but it'll also get 70, 80, maybe 90 degrees in the summer. So you get a really wide range of temperatures depending on the time of year. If you live at a place like Homer, where I live, it's really temperate. I'm about 4-hour drive south, about 100 miles south of Anchorage, Alaska. And we get a lot of weather that blows in from Hawaii, blows up the Aleutian chain and kind of hugs the chain there and pushes its way up to us. But it's pretty temperate here. You'll be in your t-shirt in the summertime, and you'll be in a medium jacket in the wintertime.
As far as daylight, you hear a lot of like, okay, it's all dark all the time for so long, or it's all daylight. Is it actually extreme on both ends, or is it just extreme on one end at one time of the year? Like what's the daylight versus nighttime situation look like throughout the year?
It's a perfect balance. So it gets more extreme the further north you go, the closer to the Arctic Ocean you get. So if you were in Sitka, let's say down southeast Alaska, down near the continental United States, it's way less noticeable, a lot less noticeable. Where I'm at is fairly mild because I'm north of that, but south of Anchorage. And then if you get up by Kotzebue and Fairbanks and north to Kaktovik and whatnot on the Arctic Ocean, it's extreme. And it's gradual. It's not like a flip of a switch and it's dark. It's just as summer comes to an end and fall comes in and then winter comes in, it just starts getting darker earlier, gets brighter later in the morning. And up at places up on the Arctic Ocean, I don't remember now exactly what it is, but there's many, many, many days, like a month or maybe two, that is dark all day long. But on the flip side of that, in the summer, for that same amount of time, it's bright, sunshiny, read a book in the middle of the night for 1 or 2 months straight. So it's all depending on how far north you go.
Like it's not crazy cold everywhere. It doesn't have to be crazy dark everywhere.
Yeah, and I think something that people oftentimes forget is how massive the state is.
Oh yeah, it's huge.
You can travel 900 miles and go from one city to another, and you haven't even hit the extremes. Yeah. So yeah, if you don't like the weather or the amount of daylight that you have in one part of the state but don't want to leave, you can get yourself to a place that's a little bit more what you're looking for.
Okay. All right. So going back to the aircraft maintenance side of the questions is, what would it look like in a typical environment, being as an aircraft mechanic in your part of the state?
Generally, the seasons go from about the 1st of May until the 1st of October. And the winter time is, at least in the operations that I've worked for, the winter time we don't fly. That's the time that you do all the heavy maintenance, all the annuals on all the airplanes. So you're maintenance heavy in the winter time, but not with unexpected breakdowns because the airplanes aren't flying. All you're doing is hitting that honey-do list that you started building all summer. And then you get them in annual, get them ready to go, plop them in the water right there in May, and then start flying. And in essence, you're kind of not necessarily on standby, but you're ready to go in case something were to break. But the better job you do in the wintertime, and assuming the pilots do their thing and don't wreck the airplanes or hurt the airplanes, and of course things break. I mean, that's just the nature of the business. But if everything goes smoothly during the summertime, you're twiddling your thumbs, ready in case that alternator goes out, or you end up with a leaky float, or you have to replace a battery or whatever. And then come October, you pull them out of the water and put them in the hangar and go to town doing all the things that you watched wear out a little bit over time with just usage, because they're putting anywhere from 3 to 6 hours sometimes on an airplane a day, and they're flying 7 days a week. And Alaska isn't nice on airplanes, man. It's rough up here. We use them hard.
Cool. So one more question in regards to your experience. Is there a time that you could mention that was you found yourself in the middle of somewhere and this is like crazy and awesome at the same time? Because I know you got a pretty good story, and let's hear a little bit about a situation like that.
The experience that comes to mind most, a couple of years ago, I was working for an operation, and we had a 1,000 horsepower radial engine, single engine Otter on straight floats. Beast of an airplane. You watch it fly through the sky, it looks like a freight train. It'll fly slower than it feels like it should fly, and it performs flawlessly. It was such a great airplane. And series of unfortunate events, mechanical errors, and the airplane had to be put down in the tundra. And it was put down in the Caribou country, which was far, far away from where we were based at. I think it was like 2.5 hour drive by typical 100 mile an hour airplane, 120 mile an hour airplane. The Black Hawk helicopter all the way up to the Otter, in the back seat of the Black Hawk with a co-pilot and a pilot. And we put down in the tundra, but the tundra was really soggy, spongy, knee-deep marsh. So they couldn't shut the helicopter down. So they just pulled power back enough to set it down to the ground firmly, but keep the weight off. And then with the rotor blades spinning, the co-pilot and I took our ladder and our tools and our wing covers and such and hopped out of the helicopter and huddled down right there next to the helicopter and let it take off over us. And it landed on a gravel bar. And then we climbed on top of the Otter, put wing covers on, watched caribou migrate through while we were at it. And then the Black Hawk came back over, picked it up with a sling load, and I got to ride in the Black Hawk with the 1,000 horsepower ancient airplane flying below us for 2.5 hours on the way home. It was a pretty high vibe. But that's remote aircraft mechanics. You know, you don't always have a hangar that you can do stuff in, and when things break, it's not always in a nice, accessible place.
That's crazy. Just listen to that story. It's like, wow. I mean, I can only imagine. Okay, so last question I have to wrap things up is, what's the GA community like that you've experienced in Alaska?
Oh man, it's, you know, I can't compare it to lower 48 at all. I got my pilot's license and my mechanic license in Colorado, but then fairly quickly came right up to Alaska and started flying, and I've been here since. But the community here is like a family. I've got friends and mechanics, pilots, aviation enthusiasts, airstrip owners, airport managers. I've got friends all the way down in the Aleutian chain, all the way up to the Arctic Ocean. And it's been fantastic. Anytime that I find myself in a place, you know, that, as they say, if you have time to spare, go by air. Very much true in Alaska. So you go on an adventure and you end up in such and such town, and you're like, well, I'm going to be here for a day. And oftentimes you can get on a Facebook group and say, hey, I'm stuck here. Anybody around? And next thing you know, you've got a car, you've got somebody to take you somewhere, you've got somebody to give you some local knowledge of how to get through the pass carefully or nicely. You got a place to tie down. And it seems like there's always somebody willing to help. And it's nice to have those connections everywhere. And I hope that I'm one of those for people as well. I'm down here in Homer, and hoping that I'll be able to help out any way I can when people come through, or if they're just looking to come through an adventure. You know, I know the area. This is my backyard, and it's really nice to have those local connections everywhere. And everybody seems to be more than happy to help out, or to give advice, or to take you up flying. And it's a really tight and very close community.
It's kind of what I expected, but it's good to know. It's good to hear for sure. So
definitely.
All right. Real quick, if you have anything to add, say someone that, you know, say someone across the video, they're still watching. If they are, that's awesome. And thank you for that. Thank you for your time. Now, if anyone says, okay, I'm on the fence, or I want to know more about being an aircraft mechanic in Alaska, would there be anything you would like to point them to? Or you probably already covered it, but I guess one last thing is, you know, if they're sitting here and they're thinking, you know, maybe I could do this, you know, what would be a next step, I guess, as far as exploring?
You know, there isn't anything that can really prepare you for it. You just got to come up and do it, and ask all the questions you possibly can, and come up and spend a summer and check it out and see what you think. Winters can be a little rough, but if you look for your first winter, it gets easier after that. You just got to keep yourself busy, and airplanes do a pretty good job of keeping you busy. So if you're interested in coming up, man, just buy a plane ticket and come up. Shout at me. I'll give you some ideas or some options on where to go or what to look for, depending on what you're looking at. I'd love to help out and get people up here. Alaska needs more mechanics, just like everywhere else does. And the GA world's strong, but I'd like to see it get stronger with more pilots and more mechanics and more old airplanes flying.
Okay. Awesome. Well, I appreciate it again, Rob. And like you mentioned, you can help, you know, answer some questions to somebody if they have. So a good way to do that probably, well, if you can find him on social, but also maybe a quick way would be to actually just drop a comment below. And if you have any other questions for myself, but definitely for Rob, drop those below in the comments, and we'll make sure we get those answered. And thank you for your time. And until next time, be safe, be blessed. I will see you in the next one. Later.